Just to let you know. Hello and welcome to today's installment of Daf Yomi, Tractate Mesechet Daf 43a, Omid A of Menachot. So let's dive straight in. So just to finish off in the last sentence, we were talking about the alum clay and the water fenugreek and urine. That was 40 days old. So the footnote, Ben Album Yom, 40 days old. Rashi explains that this refers to urine from a baby that is 40 days old. In terms, it refers to urine that left the person's body 40 days earlier. The Rambam interprets the Gemara in accordance with this second explanation. He was soaked in sky blue wool in this solution from night until morning. If his color would fade, Iparad Hazute. So what does that mean? Iparad means separated or detached, and therefore the expression Iparad Hazute may mean that the color became detached from the fabric, or that they are now different hues that are distinct and separate from one another, indicating that the dye cannot withstand the laundering agents. It should be noted that attempts to replicate these methods of testing in modern times in order to identify the authentic sky blue dye have been inconclusive. The sky blue wool was determined to be unfit, as it was not dyed with techelet derived from a chilazon. If its color would not fade, the sky blue wool was determined to be fit. Rav Ada said before Rava, in the name of Rav Aviva, one brings hard, al-kesa. What's that? Al-kesa. This word, which does not appear anywhere else in the Gemara, is understood by the early commentators to mean strong or sharp. Some say that it is a corruption of the Greek word of the same meaning. According to the version of the text, as recorded by in some early commentaries, e.g. the Rif, the word hasena or hasania, which can refer to shelled or ground barley. It appears that the Rambam's version of the text had the word hasena, which means a small fish, and he explains that the reference is to dough prepared for a sharp food that included fish brine with either flour or fermented dough, leavened barley dough, and baked sky blue wool in it. If the color of the sky blue wool changes for the better, meaning that the process intensifies the color of the sky blue wool, then it is fit. If the color of the sky blue wool changes for the worse, i.e. it fades, then it is unfit. And your mnemonic is change reveals falsehood and change reveals truth. All of this indicates that it is possible to test whether the sky blue wool has been dyed with real techelet, contrary to the Braita. The Gemara explains the Braita. What does it mean when it says there is no reliable method of testing sky blue wool? It means that there is no way to test whether it was dyed for the sake of the mitzvah or for the purpose of dyeing the wool. So let's explain that. For this reason, the Braita requires that one purchase sky blue wool from an expert who is aware that wool was dyed for testing is unfit for the mitzvah ritual fringes. Nevertheless, it is still necessary to test whether the wool was dyed with techelet or indigo, as some sellers are not knowledgeable with regard to this issue. And that's from the Tosfot, Birchas Hazeva, and some Kedoshim, which cite different interpretations as to the precise intent of Tosfot. The Rambam infers from the Gemara here that although one is not obligated to test sky blue wool purchased from an expert, if one does perform the test described in the Gemara and the wool does not pass, it is unfit for ritual fringe. As the Rambam says, "For having her consists 2:4." See the Ketov Mishnah there. The moral is that Ma, a sage of Mashkai, let's see the Hebrew, Mimashche, brought sky blue wool in the years when Rav Ashi was a preeminent sage. Rav Achi was a preeminent sage. They tested it in the manner described by Rav Yitzchak, son of Rav Yehuda, and its color faded. And then they tested it in the manner described by Rav Ada, and the color changed for the better. The sages thought that the sky blue wool should be deemed unfit because it did not pass the first test. Rav Achi said to them, "But how could it be that this wool is not techelet, as it failed one of the tests, and is also not indigo, as it passed the other? This is impossible because it must be one or the other." Now I conclude from it that these halachot were stated together. How does one test sky blue wool to determine whether it was dyed properly or not? One soaks it for a 24-hour period in a solution of straw, water, fenugreek, and urine that fermented for 40 days. If the color does not fade, it is deemed fit. If it does fade, one takes barley dough that has been fermented for use with fish and brine, and he bakes the wool in that dough. He then inspects the wool. If it faded further, it is unfit. If the color has become darker and more intense, then it is fit. That's what I'm saying for Hava Scissors 2.5. He explains in a case where we tested the wool in the manner described by Rav Yitzchak, son of Rav Yehuda, and its color did not fade, it is fit and requires no further testing. If its color faded, then we test it in the manner described by Rav Ada with hard leavened barley dough. If the color changed for the better, it is fit. If the color changed for the worse, it is unfit. Gemara adds, then they sent a message from their eye Eretz Yisrael. These halachot were in fact stated together as explained by Rav Achi. The Gemara relates that Rav Mani was exacting and purchased sky blue wool in accordance with the stringencies of the Brisa. What does that mean? Rabbi Mani Tiyek Bezavein Chamure Masnisa. Rabbi Mani purchased sky blue dye in order to sell it to others. Rabbi Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagol explained that Rabbi Mani would follow all of the possible stringencies by purchasing exclusively from experts and performing both tests. He explained that his stringency consisted of not relying on testing and therefore purchasing only from experts, and that's the Milke Yosef. Cited in the i.e. that wool dyed as the test is unfit for ritual fringes, and that therefore one should purchase sky blue wool for ritual fringes only from an expert. And so the elder said to him, "This is what your early predecessors did, and their businesses were successful." This is according to the Gemara in Pesachim 50b, that those who sell sky blue dye or otherwise engage in the work of heaven for profit do not see a sign of blessing from the labor. But if they engage in these activities for the sake of heaven, they do see a blessing from the labor, and that's from the Karen Orah. And the sage is taught in a Brisa. In the case of one who purchases a cloak with ritual fringes from the marketplace. Halokeach Tavis Musuyezes Min Hashuk. If one purchases a cloak with ritual fringes from a Jew, or from a Gentile merchant who claims to have purchased it from a Jew, it is fit. The Mishnah Board discusses whether it is permitted to purchase ritual fringes that are not attached to a cloak from a Gentile merchant. But if he purchases them from a Gentile who is not a merchant, the ritual fringes are presumed to be unfit. And that's from the Rambam Sefer Hava Hilchot 2.7 Orach Chaim 21. If he purchases it from a Jew, it retains its presumptive status. There is a presumptive status that the ritual fringes were prepared properly because most of those who involve themselves in the preparation of ritual fringes are experts. Nimuke Yosef or Shlomo. The Ban or Chaim 20 infers from the fact that the Gemara does not simply state that the ritual fringes are fit, that it depends on whether the seller is a reliable individual. Then it is fit for the mitzvah. If he purchases it from a Gentile, then if he purchases it from a merchant, it is presumed to be fit. The assumption is that the Gentile merchant purchased the cloak and ritual fringes from a Jew who is an expert and knows that the sky blue wool must be dyed for the sake of the mitzvah in order for it to be fit as ritual fringes, and knows that wool that was colored in order to test the dye is considered unfit. The merchant would not lie, as he does not want to ruin his professional reputation. This is not the case if he is a private individual rather than a professional merchant, says Rashi. There are those who explain that this refers to an established merchant who routinely does business with Jews. And that's in the Milke Yosef. Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagol explains that whereas there might be circumstances under which a Jew would sell sky blue wool to a Gentile merchant, a Jew would never sell it to a Gentile who is a private individual, as a merchant would want to maintain his credibility and would therefore purchase sky blue strings only from a reliable source. If he purchased it from a Gentile who is an ordinary person rather than a professional merchant, sky blue strings are unfit, as the seller presumably dyed them himself. And even though the sages said a person is not permitted to sell, in Adam Rashe Limka, one may not sell a cloak with ritual fringes to a Gentile due to concern lest the Jew think that the buyer is Jewish and accompany him on a journey, in which case the Gentile might kill him. There are those who say that even in a situation where this concern does not apply, it may be permitted to sell a cloak with ritual fringes to a Gentile due to the concern that he may visit a prostitute, and observers will assume that he is a Jew. The Chai Adam is prohibited to give him a cloak with ritual fringes as collateral or deposit unless it's for a very short period of time. Notice the Rambam Sefer Hava Hilchot Sisis 3.9 Orach Chaim 22. cloak with fringes to a Gentile until he unties and removes its ritual fringes. It is permitted to purchase such a cloak from a Gentile merchant who, as it is assumed that the merchant acquired the cloak from a Jew who ignored this halacha. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for the prohibition against selling a cloak with ritual fringes to a Gentile? The Gemara answers, here they interpreted that it is prohibited because of the concern that when Gentile visits a prostitute. Rashi offers two interpretations. One is that this refers to a Jewish prostitute, and the concern that she will engage in intercourse with this Gentile because she believes him to be a Jew. Consequently, the prostitute will violate the prohibition. Neither shall you make marriages with them, Deuteronomy 7:3. Some commentators claim that this interpretation is difficult because the prohibition does not apply to intercourse that occurs outside the context of marriage. Rashi's second interpretation, which is also the explanation of Rabbeinu Gershom Mo'agola, is that the Gentile will visit a Gentile prostitute and give her the cloak with the ritual fringe as payment for his services. She will then claim that the cloak is given to her by a particular Jew, thereby unfairly sullying his reputation. And observers will think that he's a Jew. Alternatively, Rabbi Yehuda said it's prohibited lest a Jew mistake the Gentile for a Jew and accompany him on a journey thinking he is also Jewish due to ritual fringes, and the Gentile might then kill him. Rabbi Yehuda would affix white and sky blue strings to the garment, pitsuma, from the Greek pitsoma, meaning loincloth or smock, of his wife, and every morning he would recite a blessing, the Mavorich called Safra. One must make a blessing on his ritual fringes in the morning, even if he was his daytime garment throughout the entire night. This is according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who hold that the obligation of ritual fringes does not apply at night. You must recite a blessing in the morning, even according to the opinion that a daytime garment is required to have ritual fringes if worn during the night, because since the night exempts a garment that is generally worn at night, it serves as an interruption between the daytime preceding it and the daytime following it, Beit Yosef. It's proper to touch ritual fringes when reciting the blessing. There are those who say that he should not recite a blessing if he wore a daytime garment all night long, since there has not been an interruption in the mitzvah with regard to a specific garment he's wearing, and that's the bar. The Magen Avraham concludes that it is advisable not to recite a blessing on the garment, and the blessing he recites on his prayer shawl will apply to the garment as well. And that's in the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 8:16. To wrap oneself in garments with ritual fringes. Ati persists. The Gemara asks, from the fact that he would affix ritual fringes to his wife's garments, it's apparent that he holds that the obligation of ritual fringes is a positive mitzvah that is not time-bound, and therefore women are also obligated in it. But if that is his opinion, why did he recite the blessing of ritual fringes each and every morning? Since his mitzvah is not limited to the daytime, one should recite the blessing only on the first time he puts on his cloak. The days and nights that follow are considered like one long period, as there is no interruption in the obligation, says Rashi. In order for the mitzvah not to be time-bound, it must apply at night, in which case a new blessing will be recited in the morning. And what answers? Well, Yehuda was acting according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, as is taught in the Bible, with regard to phylacteries, every time one dons them, Kol Zaman Shimanachan, if one recites a blessing on phylacteries every time he dons them, even if he removes them and dons them again several times in one day. The same applies to ritual fringes. Some hold that if he removed them with the intention of putting them back on a short time later, he does not recite a new blessing. I'm a Sefer Haggadah from the Mezuzah of the Sefer Torah 4:7, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 8:14, 25:12. He recites the blessing over them even several times in one day. And this is a statement of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. The Gemara asks, if so, he should have recited a blessing every time he took off the cloak and put it back on, and not merely once a day in the morning. The Gemara answers, Yehuda was a modest man, and he did not remove his cloak the entire day. The Gemara asks, in what way is it different from the morning? I.e., when did he recite a blessing in the morning? The Gemara answers, he recited the blessing in the morning when he changed from a nighttime garment to a daytime garment. The Gemara's question assumes that the sages will arise before daybreak in order to study Torah. Therefore, the Gemara asks why Rabbi Yehuda did not recite the blessing when he awoke, rather than waiting until the morning. It answers that he wore one cloak at night, and in the morning he would put on a nicer cloak, which he would wear in public. He recited the blessing when he put on the daytime cloak. That's from the vein of Gershom Hagolah and Rashi. The sages taught in the Bible. Everyone is obligated in the midst of ritual fringes, including priests, Levites, Israelites, converts, women, and Canaanite slaves. Rabbi Shimon deemed women exempt. Potek Benoshim. Women and Canaanite slaves are not obligated in the midst of ritual fringes, as is a positive, time-bound mitzvah. This is according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, whose opinion is expressed in unattributed Mishnayot and accepted by the Gemara in several places. As the Rambam say, "V'hava Hilchot 638, Or Chaim 17:2, and see the Ber there." Because the mitzvah which offends is a positive time-bound mitzvah. Mitzvah Aseh Hasman Geramo. Neither the Mishnah nor the Gemara explains why women are exempt from mitzvot that must be performed at specific times. Jewish thinkers throughout the ages try to explain the legal distinction between the sexes. The 14th century halacha work Kolber by Rabbi Aaron HaKohen and the commentary to the prayer book known as the Abu Dirham from the same century both claim that a woman is subservient to her husband and must be prepared at all times to do his bidding. Were a woman obligated to perform a mitzvah at a set time, conflicts might arise between serving her husband and fulfilling her legal requirements. A quandary of this kind will not occur when a woman can postpone a mitzvah such as charity, which does not need to be performed at a particular time. An extension of this opinion is that for a woman with children, time is not her own. A mother cannot be expected to perform mitzvah at fixed times during the day when she must tend to her young ones. This theory apparently does not take into account the fact that many females have long periods in their lives when they are not married and do not have children requiring constant attention. Still, the halacha that impose universities despite being applicable in only some situations. A different explanation is that women are on a higher spiritual plane than men and therefore do not require time and mitzvah to deepen the relationship with God. One proponent of this theory is the 19th century scholar Rabbi Shamsum Yufal Hirsch, who wrote in his commentary to Leviticus 23:43 that a man's loyalty to Torah is constantly being tested, which is why he must be periodically guided by mitzvah reminding him of his religion. Women are tempted less by their environment because of their inherent spirituality naturally draws them to God. It should be noted that the category of time-bound mitzvot from which women are exempt is relatively small compared to the number of positive mitzvot that women must perform. The mitzvot from which women are exempt include reciting Shema twice daily, wearing ritual fringes, donning phylacteries, taking the four species on the festival of Sukkot, sitting in the sukkah, and hearing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Many women nevertheless do observe the majority of these mitzvot. There is an additional list of positive time-bound mitzvot that women are obligated to observe. This list includes reciting Kiddush on Shabbat and eating matzah on the first night of Passover. And women are exempt from every positive time-bound mitzvah. The Gemara analyzed the Bais. The Master said in the Bais that everyone is obligated in the midst of ritual fringes, including priests, Levites, and Israelites. The Gemara asks, is not obvious. As if priests, Levites, and Israelites were exempt from the mitzvah, who then is to be obligated? The Gemara answers, it was necessary for the Bible to mention that priests are obligated to fulfill the mitzvah, as it may enter your mind to say as follows. Since it is written, you shall not wear the diverse kinds, wool and linen together. You shall prepare yourselves twisted cords upon the four corners of your covering, Deuteronomy 22:11-12. Only one who is not permitted to wear diverse kinds is obligated in the midst of ritual fringes. With regard to these priests, since diverse kinds are permitted for them when they perform the temple service, as the belt of the priestly vestments contain diverse kinds, they should not be obligated in the midst of ritual fringes. Therefore, the Bible teaches that although the prohibition of diverse kinds is permitted for them at the time when they perform the temple service, when it is not the time for the temple service, it is not permitted. What's the footnote? Balon Eden Avoda Lo Istale. If a priest wears his priestly vestments when he is not performing the temple service, he is flogged, because the belt contains both wool and linen. He is permitted to wear it only when he is performing the temple service. When wearing the belt is a positive mitzvah like that of ritual fringes. The Rabbit holds that priests are permitted to wear their vestments as long as they are in the temple. And that's from the Rambam Sefer Devarim, Hilchot Kalayim 10:32, and Sefer Avoda, Hilchot Kliyah Mitzvos 8:11, to the Mishnah, and the rabbis there. And therefore, priests are obligated in the midst of ritual fringes. The Brisa states that Rabbi Shimon deemed women exempt. The Gemara asks, what is the reason, Rabbi Shimon? The Gemara answers, as is taught in the Brisa, that with regard to ritual fringes is stated, and it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord in Numbers 15:39. The term that you may look excludes a nighttime garment, as it is dark at night and therefore difficult to see. Parad Lichsus Laila. There was a dispute among the early commentators as to the precise meaning of the statement. Rabbeinu Tam holds that a nighttime garment is exempt from ritual fringes even when it is occasionally worn during the day, whereas a daytime garment is obligated even when it was worn at night. But Murthy, Rashi, and the Rambam hold that any garment is exempt from ritual fringes if it is worn at night, and any garment obligated to have ritual fringes if it is worn during the day. See the Rosh Hilchot Tzitzis 1, so Agot Aryeh 30. The Bible continues. One may ask, do you say that the verse says to exclude a nighttime garment, or is it to exclude only the garment of a blind person who is also unable to see the ritual fringes? The Tanna explains, when the verse states of your covering with which you cover yourself, Deuteronomy 22:12, the garment of a blind person is mentioned as being included, as the verse already stated of your covering and did not need to state with which you cover yourself. If so, how do I realize the meaning of the exclusion that you may look upon it? It must exclude a nighttime garment. The Gemara asks, what did you see that led you to include the garment of a blind person from the phrase with which you cover yourself, and to exclude a nighttime garment from the phrase that you may look upon it, rather than including a nighttime garment in the obligation and excluding the garment of a blind person? The Gemara answers, I include the garment of a blind person. Merabba ani kasus sumo. Although the verse states that you may look upon it in Numbers 15:13, a blind man is obligated in the midst of ritual fringes. This is due to the fact that although he cannot see the ritual fringes, others can see them. This is according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon and the explanation of the Braita. Rabbi Sefer Hava Hilchot 3:7, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 17:1. The Midrash offers another explanation after the verse states that you may look upon it and remember. Numbers 15:39. It states that you may remember in 15:40. The Torah thereby refers to both sight and remembrance, indicating that the mitzvah is limited to times of the day when people can see, whereas individuals who cannot see are included in the mitzvah as long as they can remember it, and that's from the Midbar Rabbah 17:5, which is not visible to even to others. The Gemara asks, and the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Shimon. That was the end of Amud A. I wish you a very good day and all the best. Bye. That was a long one.